Hey guys, it's John. You're in the JRB Tree Climbing channel. This is a dedicated video on the Moose Hitch, which I recently introduced. I'm going to show you how to tie it. I'm going to show its variations. So in that video, I showed you how I can create a secure anchor onto a ring, which is also easily removable. Why did I need that? Well, I needed that because I'll use it here on my JRB cinch. It incorporates one of those moose hitches, and it makes it easier to build this and easier to take it apart after loading. But we've got some options for how we finish the moose hitch, and so this is the version I've already showed you. Now this is a moose hitch as well, but it looks different. It's got 3 horizontal bars, and it really resembles, to look at it, it looks just like a buffalo hitch. But on closer inspection, you'll note that this part right here is actually a girth hitch. I'll show you how to tie this, and we'll talk about why we might want to prefer this one on a ring and this one on a carabiner. All right, let's get started. Prerequisite knowledge. You need to know how to tie a poacher's knot. See my dedicated video on the scaffold knot, poacher's knot, and overhand noose knots. And you need to know how to tie a girth hitch. I'm going to start with a very short working end. I just need a few inches of tail here, so it's about the width of my 4 fingers. I'm working with 10mm rope, and I will form a poacher's knot. How do I make a poacher's knot? I make 2 wraps back towards my hand, and then I force the end through. And that is a double overhand noose knot, also known as a poacher's knot. Now, if you inspect it, you've got one side I call the front with 2 horizontal bars, and the back side has got the 2 crossing bars. I always work it from the front side with the parallel bars. I'm going to affix a ring, and the ring is accepted this way. I take the loop formed by the poachers, I put it inside the ring, and then I take the ring and slide it through the loop. And in that, this part that you see here, that is a girth hitch. It's just formed with the loop inside poacher's knot. And if I pull on this, I can snug it up. Now, we've got some options for how this crossing strand from the girth hitch would rest. And this is its natural state. I'll call this position 1. In position 1, if I were to really crank this down, it would be difficult to remove from a ring. I'll call this position 2. If I separate the strands of the poacher's knot and put that crossing strand between them, I'll call that position 2. And again, I'm not going to tighten this real tight because we're still working with it. I'll call this position 3, if we put it there. And position 4 is the one I prefer for a ring, and that's where I actually pop this through. I pop the end through and draw it tight. This is the position I like to tie it. Why? Well, because it's easy to remove when under normal loads. So going back to this model, and I have loaded this many times in cyclic loading with my body, so it's really on there pretty good. Look, it's not, I gotta put some effort to get that to slide on the ring. It's cinched nice and tight. If I want to untie it, it's simply a matter of breaking this bite that goes around the back. I just break it like that, and I can easily pop this off, ungirth hitch it, and then remove the poacher's knot. It's that easy. And it doesn't really matter if I tied it with a small ring or a large ring. I chose the large one because that would just be the more challenging one to remove. This is position 1, tied on a carabiner and cinched with cyclic loading with my body weight. If I tried to pop this off, I mean, I can't do it. I can't just pop this off. It's that carabiner's on there really good, and so I like this option, but I like it for a carabiner. Why? Because even after I give this a good load, a load of my body weight, not necessarily for rigging and not for absorbing a fall, we always climb on low slack, so we really can't foreseeably see a fall, and if we did, well, then it wouldn't be a big deal if this was hard to get off. But under normal loads, I can just work that back. If I needed to remove this, I can work it back. I can remove my carabiner. Get rid of that girth hitch, and then explode my poacher's knot. So I like position 1 for a carabiner. Let's do one from scratch. It's the same knot. I'm just going to change the position that I set the final crossing bar. We'll go quick. Poacher's knot. Which side? Not that side. This side, the front side. I don't need to open my carabiner to build this. I simply pass this through and pass that through. And remove all slack. That is a very stable anchor. And it's easier to remove than a scaffold knot. And it's more stable because it's grabbing this in 2 places. Very strong. I'll give you a look at all dimensions. Okay, now I got to show you something else. That was position 1. This is position 2. This is position 3. And this is position 4. And you are welcome to try out those other positions, and you can reply back with comments in terms of your preference and how hard it was to remove and what kind of materials you were using and how big your load was. I'd love to get that information. But what I want you to recognize is once we get to position 4, under a heavy load, the knot is capable of morphing. And it's not just the load we put on it. It also has to do with the size of the host, in this case a ring, and the rope. In this case, the rope and the ring are about the same diameter. And this ring serves as a bit of a stopper. It holds this loop in place. But if I were to work this, watch what I can do here. If I break this and I shortened and I bring this through, well, look how I could morph this. I could morph this now. Look what happens. I no longer have 2 loops going around the ring. I only have 1. I effectively have here, if you look at that, that's a poacher's knot, and it's running. It's running on the line. This is very, very strong, but if you put a heavy load on that, it will be difficult to remove. Now, I've tested this a lot before reaching my conclusion that this will not happen with a good diameter rope on a rappel ring. But when I change the diameter, if I use a really small cord relative to the host, this morphing can occur. And in fact, here on the bar, what I did is I tied with 4mm cord on a carabiner and on this bar, this 1-inch diameter bar. This is the position 1 variant on the right. This is position 1. And you could see it just got tight. It just got tight. And I loaded this many times. But if I needed to move this, I could still move it, wiggle it a little bit, and I could get this carabiner off. And of course, I would never really tie this on a fixed bar, but it's on there pretty good. I can rotate it, but it would be hard to get this off a fixed bar. But if it were a carabiner, no problem. But you can see how it hasn't morphed. Here, I've tied it using position 4. And in position 4, you could see that hitch is starting to morph. I mean, I loaded this just hundreds and hundreds of times, pulling on it. You could see how this little gap appeared. Let's get it back to the way it was originally. That's the way it was originally in position 4. And on the host bar, it took a lot of tugs, but eventually it morphed. It eventually morphed into that other position. Again, it's really strong, but this is going to be really hard to get off of here. It would, of course, work on a carabiner, but I want you to be aware of that property. Now, I've tested this extensively with the JRB cinch and with just normal weights of our body weight, and it doesn't morph under those loads. Okay, one more time. Create a poacher's knot. Don't make it too tight. Put it through the object. Put the object through it. This would be position 1, creating a tight moose, but I like it up in position 4, creating a loose moose. A loose moose, and that even after I tighten that significantly, I can always break it, ungirth hitch it, and explode it. Okay, that'll be coming to a JRB cinch near you soon. Thanks, guys.